The setting opens in the slumber room of the funeral director's establishment before the remains are taken to the church. Attention is directed to the cross, which appears in the lid of the casket. This emblem typifies the Episcopal service. It should be remembered that the casket is never opened in the Episcopal Church. Therefore, opportunity is provided for friends and loved ones to pay their farewell tribute before the church service. In contrast to other types of services, it is observed that floral tributes are very much a part of the Episcopal service. The flowers are rearranged before closing the casket to accompany the body to the church, where they are permitted in most cases. The family piece may stay on the casket during the entire service. The family arrives at the mortuary, and the funeral director escorts them to the casket to spend their final moments. The funeral director stays close by the family during the last interval, although he keeps himself very much in the background. He is their friendly servant who is available for their instant need or call. After their final moments together, the family steps back for the director to close the casket. The director beckons to his assistant to come forward and to arrange the floral display to enable the director to close and seal the casket, which he does with painstaking care and in the presence of the entire family group. The casket floral piece is then centered. The director then steps back and observes the setting. He sees that the casket piece is correctly centered, and he then moves the other floral tributes to aid his assistants to remove the casket. He motions for another assistant to come forward to help with the removal. The two able assistants direct the casket cautiously toward the entrance of the establishment, and the director remains behind to escort the family. Observe the quiet and dignified manner in which he handles himself, his assistants, and the family. After the assistants leave the reposing room, they are joined by the casket bearers, who accompany the casket and place it in the funeral coach for departure to the church. The director escorts the family to their waiting limousine. After they are seated, he then confers with the chauffeur of the funeral coach, takes the lead car, and the procession starts for the Episcopal Church. A motorcycle escort leads the group through the city streets to make for right-of-way and to control traffic and the speed of the procession. The cortege approaches the church with diminished speed. Each car is stopped at the desired location to provide direct and proper entry for the casket and the family to the church. After the procession has been brought to a stop with each car well located, the director alights and walks toward the family limousine. The funeral coach chauffeur prepares the side-loading coach for perfect horizontal removal of the casket by using the automatic leveling device. He simply moves the direction control lever, pushes the switch, and the mechanism is in operation. Because of the street slope, the left side of the coach is elevated to assure a level casket table. Release of the switch locks the device in position. The director arrives at the family limousine by the time the funeral coach has been properly leveled. He helps each member of the family to alight. While his assistant opens the funeral coach doors, motions to the bearers to take their positions, and with the touch of a finger, the automatic table is put into operation and the casket brought between the waiting bearers. Led by the assistant, the family procession forms to enter the vestibule of the church, where the rector and crucifer await the Episcopal service. It is well to point out that promptness is essential on the funeral director's part in all church services. When schedules are maintained, the rector is not kept waiting in the vestibule of the church for an indefinite period. After the procession reaches the vestibule, the crucifer and the rector take the lead as it proceeds down the center church aisle, the rector giving the renowned Episcopal passage from the Book of Common Prayer, I am the resurrection. After the casket has been placed, the bearers are seated on the left and the family seated on the right. The director and his assistants then take their leave for the vestibule of the church. From his lectern in the chancel, the rector reads a scripture lesson from the Psalms. It should be remembered that the Episcopal service is short. Upon completion of this portion of his ecclesiastic duties, he enters the sanctuary. During this interval, a hymn may be sung. The choir may furnish music, and solos and duets are proper. And, in some localities, congregational singing is permitted. As the rector reaches the altar in the sanctuary, he gives the creed. He then faces the congregation and offers a benediction. After the benediction, he kneels in silent prayer. The rector leaves the sanctuary with the crucifer in the lead, and as he departs, the organist begins playing the postlude. This is the director's clue that the service is about to be completed. Led by the crucifer, the rector starts down the aisle. After they pass the casket, the director and his assistants come forward. The casket is then turned in the form of a cross and prepared to leave the church, the foot first, as it entered. The pallbearers take their stations on each side. The director motions to the family and escorts them up the aisle to form the moving procession as it leaves the church. The crucifer, the rector, the casket bearers, and assistant directors precede the director, who leads the family in the order of the procession. As the crucifer and rector leave the church, the bearers, under the direction of the assistants, lift the casket from the catafalque, and the line of procession, as started from the altar, proceeds toward the funeral coach. Although the director is in full charge of the service, he gives his undivided attention to the family, while his capable assistant handles the casket and the pallbearers. Upon arrival at the casket coach, the crucifer steps to the right, the rector to the left, while the bearers place the casket on the awaiting table. They resume a double file position. The assistant locks the casket to the table by placing the beer pin in position. Then, by simply pressing a button, the automatic table delivers the casket to the center of the coach, where the table locks itself securely for traveling. Timing is the key to a smooth service. The director escorts the family to their waiting limousine. And as he seats them in the limousine, his assistant closes the doors on the funeral coach and motions the bearers to their car. The crucifer returns to the church. The director comes forward after all the cars are occupied, joins the rector, and walks with him to the lead car. He opens the door and seats the rector. This procedure is in keeping with the ritual of the church, which stipulates that the rector must always precede the casket. The director converses with the motorcycle escort, informing him that they are ready to depart. After the director joins the rector, the procession starts in unison for the cemetery. In the meanwhile, another assistant from the mortuary conducts an all-important part of the service. After the procession has departed, he removes each floral piece carefully and tenderly from the church and places them in a flower car for transportation to the cemetery. The attendant treats each floral display carefully in transit because each display represents an expression of sympathy. He leaves the church and drives to the cemetery by a different route. In this manner, he is able to reach the point of interment before the cortege arrives to reestablish the complete floral display, which is an important part of the final memory picture. Each floral piece is handled just as carefully at the graveside as it was at the church. When his duty has been completed, the flower car is moved to open the drive for the funeral procession, which is en route to the cemetery at an even pace. First, there is the escort. Next, the rector's car, the pallbearer's coach, the funeral coach, and the family limousine. When the cortege approaches the gates of the final resting place, notice the illuminated headlights to denote a funeral procession. Also, the motorcycle escort stops at the entrance to divert traffic. As the coaches pass, he removes his hat and gives the customary salute of respect. The cortege moves into the cemetery in close order formation at a much slower pace than on the city streets. As the family approaches this beautiful garden plot, they appreciate their selection of this type of final resting place for their loved one. After the procession has been brought to a stop, the director and the rector alight from the lead car. The two walk toward the funeral coach, while the assistant opens the doors for the pallbearers. The bearers, under his direction, take their places at the side of the funeral coach, facing each other in single files as before, while the assistant brings the table to its unloading position. The director helps the family to alight from their limousine as the bearers receive the casket from the coach. Notice the short distance between the funeral coach and the family car, which is possible only when side-loading funeral coaches are used. It is well to observe that as the casket is placed on the lowering device, the rector has assumed his position at the head of the grave, and the pallbearers have taken their station in double file at his left before the family is brought to the graveside. The funeral director is still devoting his complete attention to the family in his quiet, sympathetic manner as they approach the graveside. After they are seated, the director steps to one side, and the rector starts the usual committal for his particular service. Note that he makes the sign of the cross with earth on the head of the casket as he recites from the Book of Common Prayer, earth to earth, ashes to ashes, and dust to dust. Immediately thereafter, he pronounces the benediction, pays his respects to the family members, and then awaits at the foot of the grave until the director has ushered all members of the family to their limousine. The assistant director motions for the bearers to take their leave, and after they have done so, he joins the rector, and they walk to the rector's car together. All members of the funeral party are assisted to their limousines. After the director seats the family in their car, he pauses for a final word with them. He assures them that he will remain for the final closing of the grave. He bids them farewell, and he then returns and makes certain that the remaining details of interment are completed.